You're not losing her because you love her too much. You're losing her because you're becoming a man she can no longer fully trust. If you're seeing my face for the first time, I'm Ava. I talk about relationships, psychology, and the mistakes that destroy respect between men and women. And before we start, like this video because it helps this message reach other men who need to hear it. Now, let me say something that will make a lot of people uncomfortable. The one thing that makes women take men for granted is not kindness, it's not generosity, it's not loyalty. It's when a man lies to keep the peace. And I'm not talking about cheating. I'm talking about the small lies. Nothing's wrong. I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind. Do whatever makes you happy. When deep down it does bother you, a lot of men think these lies are harmless. They think they're protecting the relationship. But what they're actually doing is training a woman to believe that their feelings, boundaries, and standards are negotiable. And once that happens, respect begins to die quietly. Let me explain why this is so dangerous. In the beginning of a relationship, many men are terrified of conflict. They don't want to argue. They don't want to look controlling. They don't want to risk losing the woman they love. So they start editing themselves. She cancels plans repeatedly. He says it's fine. She disrespects him in front of friends. He laughs it off. She does something that genuinely hurts him. He says, don't worry about it. He keeps swallowing his truth because he thinks peace is love. But peace built on dishonesty is not peace. It's emotional surrender. And women can feel it, not always consciously, but they feel it. They notice that your words and your emotions don't match. They notice that you say yes when your face says no. They notice that you avoid difficult conversations. And something changes. Here's the controversial part. Many women do not lose attraction because a man expresses his feelings. They lose attraction because he hides his feelings and becomes emotionally inconsistent. A man who calmly says, that bothered me and I don't want it to continue, is often more respected than a man who says, it's okay, and then becomes distant, passive-aggressive, or resentful later. Women are not mind readers. If you keep lying about what hurts you, you create a relationship where your real self is never present. And then men complain, she takes me for granted. Of course she does. You taught her that your boundaries are optional? Let me give you a real-life example. A man doesn't like that his girlfriend constantly flirts with other men on social media. Instead of saying that honestly, he says, I'm not the jealous type. Why? Because he wants to seem secure, but every time it happens, he feels disrespected, so he becomes colder, he starts communicating, he starts overthinking. Eventually he explodes, and she says, why didn't you tell me this earlier? That explosion didn't come from one incident. It came from months of lying to keep the peace. And ladies watching this matters for you too. When a man never tells you the truth, you may think the relationship is healthy when it's actually accumulating hidden resentment. A relationship cannot be intimate if one person is performing harmony instead of practicing honesty. Now, let's talk about the biggest lie men tell. I don't want to make it a big deal. Brother, if it keeps bothering you, it already is a big deal. You're just postponing the conversation, and postponed truth becomes accumulated resentment. Accumulated resentment becomes emotional withdrawal. Emotional withdrawal becomes a dead relationship. I've worked with couples where the woman said, I wish he had told me sooner, not because she agreed with him on everything, but because she could no longer trust his silence. Think about that. When you constantly say it's fine, when it isn't, your silence stops looking like strength and starts looking like self-abandonment. Here's what emotionally strong men do differently. They don't scream. They don't threaten. They don't control. They tell the truth early, calmly, clearly, respectfully. For example, that hurt me. I'm not comfortable with that. I need us to handle this differently. I can't pretend I'm okay with this. That is not weakness. That is emotional leadership. And yes, it may create temporary conflict. But temporary conflict is far less destructive than long-term dishonesty. Let me say something that may go viral for the wrong reasons. Some men are not being taken for granted because they love too much. They're being taken for granted because they refuse to be honest about what they require to feel respected. Love without truth is not noble. It is unstable. Now, does this mean you should complain about everything? No. Maturity is not brutal honesty. Maturity is responsible honesty. Ask yourself 3 questions. Asterisk, is this genuinely bothering me? Asterisk, has it become a pattern? Asterisk, would I still care about this a week from now? If the answer is yes, speak. Not to win, not to punish, not to control. Speak to prevent resentment from replacing intimacy. And here is the mind-blowing part. The men who are most respected in relationships are often not the loudest men, the richest men, or the most romantic men. They are the men whose yes means yes and whose no means no. Their words can be trusted. Their boundaries are clear. Their emotions are congruent. They do not manipulate with silence. They do not perform peace while secretly building resentment. And because of that, they are far less likely to be taken for granted. If you take only one lesson from this video, let it be this. Never trade honesty for temporary peace. Because every time you lie to avoid conflict, you pay for it later with respect, connection, and emotional intimacy. Tell the truth kindly. Tell it early. Tell it before resentment tells it for you. And if this video challenged the way you think about relationships, like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you ever said I'm fine when you were actually hurt? I'm Ava, and I'll see you in the next video.